Hi, Chad.
Hi, Lana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Hi, James.
Hello.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
Wait till January to do this one.
And then you'll be out for another 3.5 months?
Hi, Joy. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Ginger.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Great.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Alana.
Hi, Lucy. We're going to wait about another 2 minutes, so we're going to start on time. Hi, Derek.
Hello.
Hi, Wally.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Stacy. Hi, Paula. Okay, it's 3 o'clock. We're going to get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Just a few ground rules to get started. My name is Alana Hine. I'm the facilitator for the House Bill 2420 work group. Happy to have you all here today. Just a few things to know. We have ground rules that are these. Let the facilitator facilitate, share the air, participate and engage, use the parking lot, ask questions, listen to understand, use the raised hand function to speak, use the chat to share links, not for ongoing commentary, and only work group members can speak or post in the chat. The meetings will be recorded and notes will be sent out. And I wanted to do a quick welcome and introductions for the work group members. I'm going to try and do it in alphabetical order. So that means we start with Stacy Clark and then Chad. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Stacy Clark. I'm Chief of Staff to Representative Mark Owens, House District 60.
Thank you, Stacy. Chad and then Lucy. Chad?
Hi, everyone. Chad Dresselhaus, Executive Director of the Oregon Mortuary and Cemetery Board. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Chad. Lucy, then Ginger. Lucy?
I'm Lucy Gibson, and I'm with Oregon DHS Child Welfare, and I'm Federal Revenue Specialist, and I'm responsible for ordering all the vital records we need for our kiddos.
Thanks, Lucy. Ginger, then Joy.
Hi, I'm Ginger Sorolla, Lead Deputy Registrar for Jackson County for Vital Records.
Thanks, Ginger. Joy and then Derek.
Hi, I'm Joy Goodwin. I work for Douglas County Clerk's Office and I am Vital Records Registrar.
Thanks. Derek, then Sarah.
Derek Patterson. I'm the liaison to the counties for the State Vital Records Office.
Thanks, Derek. Sarah, then Paula.
Hi, I'm Sarah Reynolds. I work at Macy and Son Funeral Directors in McMinnville. I'm the office manager.
And Paula,
Paula.
then Wally. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go.
I'm Paola Sauls. I'm Clackamas County Vital Records Office Supervisor.
Thanks. Wally, then Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Wally Ordeman, Executive Director of the Oregon Funeral Directors Association and funeral home operator in Albany.
Thanks. Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Woodward, and I am the State Registrar Manager for the Center for Health Statistics.
Thank you. And did I miss any work group members? Okay, got everybody. Today, just want to remind you that we are being recorded. Everybody knows that this is a recorded meeting. We are, as we go through the panel presentation today, just as we did with last month's panel, we'll be compiling the information and producing a frequently asked questions document so that people can access that as the time goes on. Today, we have the honor of hearing from the funeral home work group representatives, and we'll do a similar to the panel that we did last month with the county representatives. This month, that we will hear from the funeral home representatives, and we have 3. Oh, is Bev? I think Bev isn't here. Actually, we may only have 2. So I think Bev said that she would be here unless she had a funeral. So that may be what happened. So we have Wally and we have Sarah, and I will keep an eye out for if Bev joins us. but I think we can just go in that order. So what I will do is I'll ask each question, and then each person will answer the question, and then I'll ask the next question, and then each person can answer. Wally and Sarah can answer the next question. After we go through the kind of the created questions, there'll be opportunities for the work group members to ask other questions if you have of Wally and Sarah. We'll wrap up by 4. Any questions about what our agenda is for today? You're probably mostly familiar with it because this is kind of the similar format to what we did with the county representatives last month. Okay, so Wally, first to you. What does a typical day look like in your death records work? What percentage of your day is spent doing death records work? It's the first question.
Excuse me. So I just want to remind everyone that I'm wearing 2 hats today, both as a funeral director and representing about 60% of the funeral homes in the state through OFDA. I don't do a lot. Excuse me. I don't do a lot of the vital records work myself, but our staff at our funeral home, we have a staff of 6 and a caseload of 450 cases annually in that neighborhood. I estimated that our staff spends about 10% of each day on generating death records, reviewing a working copy with the family, taking them to doctors, taking them to the health department, or sending an order electronically, working on amendments, picking them up from the health department, or when they're mailed, sorting the mail and working with them that way, and getting the DCs into the family's hands. I kind of just answered questions 1 and 2 together. So, but that's that's pretty much from our firm in Albany. That's going to be pretty close. I'm estimating about 10% a day.
And Wally, do you want to express anything with your other hat on in terms of the other homes that you work with or represent?
That's coming later.
Okay, all right, thanks. Sarah, over to you. What does a typical day look like in your death records work? What percentage of your day is spent doing death records work?
Yeah, so I'm the office manager here. Our funeral directors are the ones that kind of meet with they are the ones that meet with the families, collect all of the information for the death certificates. And then I and my cohort, Jan, who works part-time with me, we actually create the death records and do everything from that point forward. We're kind of estimated it's about 25% of our day is spent doing death record work. And that does include creating, locating the doctor who's going to sign it, which sometimes takes a while, amendments, ordering, mailing. About 25% of what we do in the office is related to death records.
Thanks, Sarah. So Wally, what's going well with your death records work?
When all the players play by the rules, it's pretty smooth. From what I can tell, I think all the ingredients are in place to be efficient, and the help desk is a really nice safety net for us.
Sarah, what about for you? What's going well with your death records?
More often than not, everything does go well. So when something goes wrong, it's not as frequent. So that's a good thing. I love the OVERS system. Everything electronic is so helpful. More and more doctors are getting on that system, and that really speeds up the process. I've noticed lately too, the amendments that we've been putting through electronically have been coming a lot faster than they were for a while. So whatever the amendments department is doing, we appreciate. And then again, the help desk they are super helpful and quick to respond. So we do appreciate that too. We've got a really good working relationship with our Yamhill County Health Department here. Turnaround is fast. They call with questions. We call them with questions. It's a a good relationship we have. So most things are going well.
Thanks, Sarah. So Wally, what's challenging in your death records work?
Well, let me say first that Oregon Vital Records has an awesome system in place for that allows a doctor or a nurse practitioner, whoever's going to be signing the death certificate, to commit to signing the death certificate, which then allows the funeral home to proceed with the disposition. They don't have to actually have the signature, which is not mimicked in all states. It's a forward-thinking process, and I applaud it. However, tracking down that certifier is extremely time-consuming, inefficient, and really frustrating. Delays in disposition because of this can create heartburn not only for funeral homes, but also the grieving families that want to maintain some sort of momentum in disposition. And when we're making multiple phone calls or going through multiple phone trees trying to just track down who's going to sign the death certificate, that's really frustrating for a funeral home and extremely inefficient.
Sarah, what's challenging in your death records?
Exactly what Wally said, locating the doctors. We cannot cremate or bury someone without a verbal okay that a doctor will sign the death certificate. I would say 85% of the doctors are responsive. It's that 15%. It takes 3 or 4 phone calls back and forth. You call someone and they don't know who to contact. The doctor's not responsive. And that really, it's frustrating for the families. It's frustrating for us. So that little portion of it does take up an inordinate amount of time when we can't track down the doctor. As far as the actual death records are concerned, my biggest frustration is even though the funeral home can input the date of death and time of death when we create the death certificate, if we do it wrong, we can't fix it. It has to be the doctor to amend it. And sometimes, again, getting hold of those doctors to fix a mistake we made. This happens very rarely, but when it does, it holds up the whole process for the family. So that would be something nice if we could change it. So the funeral homes can amend that little piece of it. It's minor frustrations. Ordering a vital record from every county is different and has different requirements, and we order from all over the state. So they're all a little different. Some keep the ID on file, some don't. Some want payment by check, some invoice us. It's just little differences. We kind of keep a running list of what to do for each county. But other than that, it's mostly good stuff, not a lot of bad.
Thanks, Sarah. So Wally, what do you hope is next for you related to death records?
So I've kind of combined that with anything else to add. So with my OFDA hat on several years ago, pre-COVID, I toured the state for a week and visited just north of 20 funeral homes. I'm sorry Bev isn't on the call today because her firm in Eastern Oregon was one of them that I visited. And my first question to funeral directors and their staffs when I visited was, what keeps you up at night? And every single firm answered, doctors not signing death certificates electronically. And it wasn't caseloads or trauma deaths or difficult families. It was the vital records work and the pressure from families to get death certificates in a timely manner. With so much of the process being out of the funeral homes or the funeral director's hands, it's particularly frustrating to take the heat and not have any leverage to move things along. That being said, what's next for OFDA, again, my OFDA hat on, is because the ORSs don't provide any leverage mandating doctors to sign electronically, OFDA is going to act, and it's our intent to introduce legislation in 2025 that will do just that, mandate that doctors sign electronically. And as part of that legislation, we'll also be asking for language mandating that facilities where a death has occurred must provide a name and contact information for who will be signing the death certificate. And hoping to address the two main issues that funeral directors are having, going back up to the challenges that we just talked about, hoping that that we could get some resolution to that. As you know, legislation it's an arduous process. And, we understand that Dr. Woodward and Chad, as agency heads, can only go so far in supporting something like that, needing to stay fairly neutral on things that affect their agencies, which is why I think OFDA is going to take the lead and see if we can get some stronger language that provides leverage, so that doctors have to sign, just like they do in Washington, so that they are mandated to sign electronically, and on the front end provide information to the funeral homes so that they can more easily get a commitment to sign the death certificate in the first place.
Sounds like that's a source of significant frustration and maybe delays. Yeah. Sarah, what about for you? What do you hope is next for you and your death records work?
I'm very excited to hear what Wally said about introducing the legislation. I think that's a great idea. That's pretty much what I was going to say, is hopefully more doctors will get on that OVERS system. It streamlines the process. Records don't get lost in the mail. They don't get delayed. So yeah, that's my hope, that we just get everybody on that system. I know, like Wally said, Washington State mandates that. So it'd be great if we could do that here as well.
Thanks. And I know, Wally, you said that you were combining that with the next question, but are there other things that we could have asked you about that we didn't bring up yet in these questions?
I don't think so. I think between Sarah and I think we've addressed the things that that are positives, and some things that are, still need to be worked on. I really don't think of anything else. Again, Sarah's more hands-on with actually doing the vital records and amendments and things like that. I'm 40 years in, and retirement as a funeral director is on the horizon. So I just don't do as much of that. The functional part of this is not really in my wheelhouse anymore.
Yeah. Thanks, Wally. Sarah, what about for you? Are there other things that we could have asked you about? Or are there other things that would be good for us to understand about how you interact with the death records?
No, I don't think so. The only thing I kind of wanted to touch on was the original point of the House bill was to make the records more accessible to people, and we're trying to kind of come up with a happy solution to that. As far as a funeral home goes, if at some point we were allowed to get death certificates on behalf of the family indefinitely, at some point we as a funeral home would have to cut that off. We can't, 10 years down the line be ordering death certificates for people. So just maybe a consideration in us being able to assist the families. Like our bookkeeper would probably want to contain it to a year from the date of death, is as long as we would, on behalf of the families, order those certificates. So just something to consider.
And a little earlier, I think, Sarah, you mentioned that different counties are different to work with. Would you be willing to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, just the ordering process is a little bit different. There's some counties that require we send a copy of our ID in with every order. Some counties, there's a couple we can order online. Only 2 that we use regularly can we order through an online portal, which is super convenient. A lot of them are fax. There's a couple of counties that still require a paper check be sent in with the order. So just just kind of making sure you're doing it right and their process hasn't changed. Not super tricky, but when we're dealing with several counties, you kind of have to go down our little list that we've made and say, okay, do they want us to fax and then call with a credit card? Do they want us to mail? So yeah, it's just something that could probably be streamlined a little bit in the future.
Chad, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just something that Sarah was talking about kind of raised just a quite general question. And I'm just curious, how do counties decide the payment process? Is it, I'm just curious how that comes about, and it sounds like it kind of varies. So I'm just curious kind of the evolution of that and why it varies maybe. And it does seem like there's a lot of kind of county decision and control on that. So maybe that's what it is. But it's just a thought that came to mind, a question of maybe we could possibly talk about streamlining that if possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the county work group members want to respond to that one. Ginger?
I can say that Jackson County at one time did billing for funeral homes for years before I even showed into the picture. After I came along, I've been doing this probably 5 years now. And what we were running into, even though they were larger corporations, were paying late on their bill due. So we'd give a 30-day extension, then it would move to 60, and then it hit 90 with, a couple of funeral homes. And that was where it's the accounting department here in Jackson County that says, we can't do this anymore. We're going to move to pay as they pay as they go. So we did that. And, like change, initially everybody was like, oh, this is not fun. But it actually worked out a lot better because they could pay with either a check or a credit card. I have funeral homes that are not near us that will send in their order form with a check. I keep IDs on file. If I get an order, like yesterday, I had an order from Princeville Funeral Home, which I've never done business with. And their order form was so ancient that I emailed them the up-to-date and let them know kind of what our requirements were here for this particular county. And everybody was obliging. I got an ID on file now, and they had the up-to-date order form, and they paid by credit card. I just called and they paid over the phone. I do that a lot with some of the local ones that are out in Grants Pass, just because their runners don't come in quite as frequently. But that was more of a accounting decision as far as getting payments happening in a timely manner.
Thanks, Ginger. Thanks for jumping in on that. What is, a couple of you have said like the ID number or registration number. Is that a registration number for the funeral home? What is that number?
I think they're talking about the copy of their ID. Every person that orders a death certificate, the state requires a copy of their ID. Clackamas, yeah, we keep those in file.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Other questions for the funeral home work group members? Other work group members have questions for how their work is going? Jennifer.
Thanks, Alana. Thank you, Wally and Sarah. It's really informative. Sarah, I have a question just to get clarification. You mentioned something about allowing funeral homes to be able to order the records indefinitely. Can you talk a little bit more? You mentioned something about a cutoff, so just a little bit more perspective on what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so right now funeral homes can only order a certain period of time, 6 months, and then after that it has to go through the state.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't, we have to refer the families if If it's been a year later, we have to refer the families. They have to go order their own. They can no longer come here and get them through us. They're on their own. A lot of people do like to come through us because we're familiar. They don't know the process. It's just much easier for them to come back to the funeral home where they got them and have us place that order for them.
Okay, so it's the idea, so it's the idea that you're sending the family to the state because of the 6-month limit, but the funeral homes can order the records regardless of, there is no time frame. Funeral homes can order a death record at any time as long as they're listed on the record.
Right, but
But you
again,
would prefer, would you like to prefer
have
that
to-
they not be able to do that?
Well, no, I'm not saying, I'm just saying as our funeral home goes, our bookkeeper
Oh.
needs to cut off those contracts at some point. She needs to
Okay.
close.
Okay,
So we
that's
usually
really helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you. I get
Yeah,
it. Okay.
just for bookkeeping purposes. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Derek, I see your hand.
Curious how often funeral directors see the case be that the medical certifier has been identified, they agree to sign the record, and they're signed up in over, so they're electronic, but then they still fail to sign or to certify the record in a timely manner. And what do you do in those situations?
Yes, Sarah?
So yes, that does happen. There's a couple of doctors that we know are notorious for holding an electronic record for 2 or 3 weeks before they sign them. Some I don't think are getting their notifications properly. There's some that we have to call and they say, oh, it didn't notify me, so I'm not sure. I don't know how it works on their end. So yes, there is still a little bit of an issue, a small percentage of the time where everything's electronic. It should go smoothly. It gets sent to the doctor and then it just sits there, doesn't get signed, and we'll place 2 or 3 calls in some cases trying to get that document signed. Most of them are quick, but not always.
Other questions? Ginger.
This was to the question before that you were asking, Jennifer, about the funeral homes and the length of getting death certificates. I have found that when families are wanting death certificates, sometimes it's easier for them to go back to the funeral homes because they've been vetted based on eligibility. Whereas some of the funeral homes will send to me family members that have already ordered them from the funeral home as part of the service that they're offering. But when they come to me, to connect the dots is a little bit more difficult. And most of the time they'll go back to the funeral home, and as a courtesy, the funeral home will reorder for them. There are a couple of funeral homes that haven't done that, which I find really interesting. So I pose it to them as a service to, offer to their customers only because of the vetting process that I have to do to prove eligibility for family members. I mean, it's possible, but it's a lot easier when they've already gone through that with a funeral home. So I just was wanting to throw that in there.
So Sarah, do you see that in your home? How do you all handle that?
Yeah, a lot of times if they can, they prefer to just order through us. Again, we know who they are. We know they're allowed to order them. It's much easier for us to do it for them, and we're happy to do that. We occasionally have outside family members calling us as well, and then that's a whole other vetting process, or we just say we can't order it on your behalf. I know sometimes they'll go to the counties and try anyway. I don't know how much consistency there is. I think everybody who's been in this business for a while is pretty good, and they know what to check and who's allowed the death certificate. But yes, a lot of people return to us as their first kind of, if they need another death certificate, we're their first phone call is, can you get more for us?
And I'm not sure that everybody knows about people who are allowed to order them and people who aren't. Do you want to say a bit about that? And then I see Jennifer's hand.
I don't have my list in front of me. However, I know it's spouses, children, parents can order for children. In some cases, people with a legal need, but that's where the gray area is, and we don't like to make that determination. So we usually stick with blood relatives who can prove with an ID who they are. And that's pretty much as far as we get into it.
Thanks. Jennifer?
Thanks. So Sarah and Wally, you both mentioned, the idea of the alternate authorization for disposition, which is, as you mentioned, is actually an Oregon law, which I think we are one of the only states that has the alternate authorization for disposition, where you call the call the medical certifier, you say verbally, you can sign off. So is that still really still done for the majority of the certificates? Because my thought is that if we had more of the medical certifiers fully electronic, they would just go ahead and sign before you even had to call them. So I'm really, is it still standard practice to do that alternate authorization for disposition, then find them and then send the electronic version?
Go for it, Sarah.
All right. I would say 99% of our cases, we use the alternate position. It's very rare that a doctor's going to be with it. For one, we're going to have all the information to create the death certificate and then have the doctor sign it before we can make a phone call and get a verbal okay that they'll sign it. That's really cool that Oregon does that. It usually, when we can get a hold of the doctor, it does allow for just instant. Once we meet with the family, if they're waiting for somebody to be cremated, we can move forth with that. We don't have to wait days. So yeah, I would say about 99% of ours are the alternate.
Yeah. I would agree with that as well. The other part of this equation is hospice, and many hospice organizations have someone on staff, either the doc or nurse practitioner, that once you've developed a relationship with them, that nurse practitioner or doctor with the organization is likely to sign. So that's either a quick call, and some hospice organizations actually have a form that goes with the body that says so and so nurse practitioner will be signing the death certificate. If we have that form, we aren't making that phone call. It's far more efficient.
So Wally, does that just depend on the practice of the individual practice, or like you said, sometimes there's a form, like who decides whether there's a form or not?
It is not uniform across all hospice organizations. Some that are a little bit more proactive are doing that. Some it's just not part of their protocol. I wish everybody did it. I wish it was more uniform, but it's not.
Thanks. Other questions for the funeral home representatives? I had a question about overs. Sarah, you said you were using the over system and that was working well. Can you talk a little bit about how that's working?
Yeah, the over system is the electronic death certificates is what we use it for. System. It used to be paper documents. Actually, it's a hybrid. Some doctors do not sign electronically. So what we'll do is print the death certificate on a piece of paper, mail it to them, or physically take it out. They physically fill it out, and then we physically take it to the health department. The over system, if the doctor's on the over system, then we can electronically send it to them. They fill it out, sign it electronically, and then we can just send the order to the county. So that over system is the electronic death record system.
Yeah. And Wally, from your perspective with either of your hats, do you get feedback about the over system and how it's used, or you have any insight about that?
It's overwhelmingly positive. The over system is amongst our colleagues, and when when used, the mortuaries love it. And it's just a matter of getting all of the players onto the same team here, and that's just not always the case. But the system itself works.
Right.
And I'll add again about the help desk that that is when something either a funeral home can't make a change, or there's something that goes wonky within the over system, the help desk is very responsive. From what I've seen and what I've heard from colleagues, the help desk is extremely responsive to what the funeral homes need, and because funeral homes need that help quickly, and it comes quickly.
Thanks for sharing that. And anything else that you want to say about, it seemed like you had some, when you were talking about what's next, you were talking about signing electronically as kind of being a goal. Do you see that as part of that same system, or is there, you were talking about the difference between the laws in Washington, the laws in Oregon.
Yeah, I have not read the Washington law. I certainly will be. As we approach the legislative session and look for sponsors for this legislation, but I'm not real sure how to answer your question, though. We don't want. I don't see us wanting to change the system. I think what Dr. Woodward has works. We want to change how doctors and nurse practitioners commit and accessibility to them. And we want to make sure 100% of the doctors and those that can sign death certificates do it electronically.
Thank you. Other questions from work group members for Wally or Sarah for the funeral home representatives? Derek?
Thinking of equitable access for families to certificates, is there any scenarios or groups of people that you have noticed having a more difficult time meeting the obligations to get certificates, whether it's coming up with an ID that's acceptable or any other barriers that you've noticed?
Oh, if I may. I was just thinking, I really haven't. Now, honestly, if somebody walks in, we call someone and they say, well, I'm the husband of so-and-so, we don't ask for a marriage certificate or anything like that. We're not doing detective work, but I can't think of any. The only kind of thing I can think of is some really elderly people, and it's more just a confusion thing. If they need to come in and get additional death certificates, they don't know how to go about doing that. But as far as the people who deserve to have them getting them, there's no barriers to that. Yeah.
Wally, do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do. I'm just not sure how to frame it. It kind of goes back to the vetting thing that we talked about. You know, I had a gentleman walk in the door. This has been 6, 8 years ago, and wanted a death certificate for his brother. And I knew that he probably wasn't entitled to have it, but he, uh, and the more I talked to him, the more uh, I was, I the more I had more questions than answers. The names didn't match up. I was having a lot of trouble, and I said, you know, explain to me your relationship again. You're his brother, but the names don't match up, et cetera. And he said, well, we're brothers in Christ. And you know, I'm at that point, I'm really ticked off. Um, and I'm sure that they are, you know, they were very close, and you know, regardless of the religious aspect of this, sometimes we get lied to, and uh, that goes then to you find yourself looking for red flags. You find yourself needing to uh, be very careful about what you provide, and funeral directors are not wired to say no. That it's just not part of our nature. And sometimes with this process, we have to, and that's a hard thing. I don't know that I specifically answered the question, but that's what came to mind when we started going down this path.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful.
thanks, Wally. Ginger, I saw your hand.
Well, I was kind of curious if you've ever run into, like, I've had funeral homes here, like when you were talking about not being able to get well, let me rephrase this. Some of the funeral homes will have families come in and they won't be able to get the ashes because they're not able to pay for the services, or they agreed to sign the contract but never met the needs of that contract. Do you run into that in your facility, your funeral home? Does that make sense?
Sarah?
Yeah.
I think I understand what you're asking. Yes, we do have occasionally people signing the contract, not able to meet the financial obligations, or knowing that they're just not going to pay and signing the contract. Uh, Occasionally they can't pay, and that's when the indigent fund comes in.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's a law or if it's just our policy. We don't personally withhold ashes from anyone, regardless of if they can pay or not. We won't do a service for them,
Right.
but we'll create the death certificate. We'll go through that process, and cremated remains will be returned regardless. We don't hold them hostage.
Yeah,
Well,
and
that's really good. Yeah.
that was the phrase I was going to use, was that there are very few, if any, funeral homes out there that are going to hold ashes
Mhm.
hostage. You know, sometimes if a family doesn't meet their obligation, or has no intention of meeting their obligation, sometimes as a funeral home, you're just better off to watch them walk away with the urn, and you know, call it good and serve the next family. And that's uh, I think most funeral directors are on that same page.
That's what I was wondering, because that has happened here on occasion, or sometimes if they're not able to provide them with the death certificates, those families who have been given the ashes that can't pay for the services will try to come to get DCs from me. And again, if they're able to show eligibility from my end, then I'm able to supply that. But I was just kind of curious about that, how frequently that might or might not happen.
Well, you bring up a really good question there, a really good point, and that's that, and I think it's where Sarah was headed to, was that, you know, you might go ahead and give the ashes to the family, and you know, everybody shakes hands and moves on, but the funeral home's not going to front the money for the family's death certificates, or any
Mhm. Right.
keepsake urns, or you know, flag case, or any of the peripheral items. They're just not going to do it. They've already
Yeah.
probably taken a beating on the cremation itself, and uh, you know, have prepared themselves to write that off. But they're not going to. They are going to send the family to you to take care of that.
I had a gentleman come up to my window with 3 bags of separate containers full of ashes. And it was very interesting to me because I had got a funeral director involved because he wanted to know who they were, his relatives. And the tag system that I guess the counties used to use was how they were able to determine the decedents for this, one of the individuals. The other 2 were from another state. But I thought that was a really wonderful thing because he was trying to determine who these people were for his own, peace of mind, I think.
Oh, the
Yeah.
DISC system
Yeah.
has really come through and in a number of situations. We've gotten a phone call from Albany Police saying that the Goodwill store had an urn and didn't know what to do with it, and there was a disc, and we were able to track down who that family was, and Albany Police was able to do their thing. And or people move out of a rental and leave an urn behind, and the new folks come in, or not, maybe even not a rental, but a home purchase, and they find something in the basement, and the disc system has definitely come through on more than one occasion.
Thank you. That's great insight, great information. Other questions from work group members for the funeral home representatives? Okay. I think that the question Derek was asking you, Wally, was about accessibility, and are there groups of people who seem to have an easier or more difficult situation accessing records? Have you seen any of that in your world?
Uh, Sarah's much more qualified than I am to answer that, and I think she did address that. I don't know that I have anything to add.
Okay, I just wanted to invite your comments if you had some.
Sure. I don't know that I've found in my career that there's been that there have been times where it's inequitable. And so I guess that's probably why I'm pausing here and really don't have a solid answer for that.
Sure, thank you. Other questions for the funeral home representatives from work group members? Okay. So again, we will compile all this information. Go ahead.
So Lana, it looks like Sarah's got her hand up.
Oh, I missed Sarah's still hand. I think Sarah's hand is still up from before. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Let me just say a little bit about what next month will be. So we have 3 work group members that we haven't heard from. Nope, that's 4. We haven't heard, and that we will hear from next month in a similar panel format. So Michael Collins, who is representing the tribal communities, Lucy Gibson, and Chad Dresselhaus, and Shauna Peterson. So those are the folks on the work group that we haven't heard, and they have a variety of specialties and backgrounds, areas of insight. So we will do, next time, the part of the meeting will be the kind of panel discussion. And then the question, and this is my invitation to you all to start thinking about this in advance of next month, is are there other questions that you have about the vital record system that we haven't addressed yet? Are there things that haven't come out, or questions or topics or issues that we haven't surfaced yet and addressed? So it's the open question for next time, in addition to hearing from the work group members that we haven't heard from before. Any questions about where we're going next? Okay, so that will be May. And the last thing that we wrap up with when we wrap up these meetings is the plus delta evaluation. So it's just a question, how was today's meeting for you? What went well, could have gone better, either for yourself or for the group in terms of process, how we worked together, or content, the work that we got done. So anything that went well, could have gone better, yourself, the group, process or content. Any comments about how today's meeting went? Jennifer.
Thanks a lot. I thought it was great, and thank you, Wally and Sarah, for sharing this information. I think all of this gathering knowledge base around the panel discussion is really, really helpful.
Thank you. Ginger.
Yeah, I want to thank the two of you as well. It's really nice to hear it from a different perspective, kind of the behind the scenes for me, you know, because I've always been, how do the hybrids go? It's all this behind the scenes thing so this has been very awesome for me to understand how that all works. Thank you.
Any other comments about how today's meeting went? Okay, so we will, let's see, we will be meeting again on the May 15th. Does that sound right? It should be the 3rd. Let me check. No, May 21st. So this time, 3 o'clock Pacific time on the 21st of May. And then we'll be hearing from the other work group members that we haven't heard from yet in a panel discussion, and asking you to bring any unanswered questions or any areas that you'd like more clarity or more information about to that meeting on May 21st. Good to see you all. I hope you're getting some spring sunshine amidst the raindrops. Thank you so much. Look forward to hearing from you and talking with you next month. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.